The staff have, you can see where the mountains end. So can you see the mountains?
Yes.
Or can you not see the mountains? Okay, who says you can see the mountains? Okay, who says you can't see the mountains? Come on, like, that wasn't 50-50. Come on, let's do that. Who says you can't see the mountains? Okay, can you see the mountains here behind the CBD based on this? No, this is a staff illustration. This is from the staff report.
You can't see the mountains.
Okay, so you're in agreement. You can't see the mountains. Raise a show of hands. Okay. Okay. So I actually decided to do the same thing. Go out to the field. And there's the answer. On December 16th, staff actually said during the presentation, the mountains are actually in the 3D model, and that's a direct quote. Because we looked at that. So that's staff report. That's the view presented to council. This is what I found in the Spanish banks. Here's my tripod. I went all the way up and down. The mountains didn't go away. They're all there. And if we look at the entire view there, there is actually quite a bit of mountain here above the west end. There's even here in the east, you see a little bit of Burnaby Mountain here, and that's the downtown core. There are a couple of peaks. Oh, of course, we're getting the build form coming above the mountains there in some places. So there's this tension between or this conflict between the natural silhouette of the free natural form, that's the mountains, and then there's a jagged geometric form of the city. And I'm just kind of looking around here. Okay, so again, I don't feel that this was an accurate representation, especially for council to see a view like this. And I'll make the note that there are, of course, indeed places in the city where you do not see the mountains behind the downtown, and here is a view from Clark and 6th, the gateway to the east, with this new iconic sculpture. I actually quite like it. It's very fitting there, and I've grown to like it. I actually liked it first off. That was brilliant. But you can choose here again to see the downtown architecture, or you can look at North Shore Mountains, and it's your choice as a pedestrian. It's a free choice. In downtown, there's been a 700-foot site identified, and some other feet. It's not that far from the Shangri-La height of 659 feet. But I'll just note that the limit, as far as I know, currently for the Central Business District is 600 feet. So somehow the Shangri-La has basically 10% more height than what is the maximum that should currently be allowed. So we have to be very careful if we suggest going to 700 feet in the Central Business District. It might mean 780 feet or 800 or 900. So we have to be very careful there with the numbers, because they're not hard, and we can see this with the example of the Shangri-La, and we can talk about other precedents in the city.
Stephen, can you tell how many stories that represents for lay people?
Well, it really depends on the floor-to-floor height. So, if you use a 9-foot floor-to-floor height, which is just easily divisible, then you can look at whether it's 80 floors or 78 or so on. It depends on the use as well, because commercial floor-to-floor height is less or it's more than residential, and it depends if it's rental and so on, and the architect as well. And there was actually an interesting question that came up during the staff presentation, which was, well, let's compare Vancouver to some other precedent, and there was this question that came up from Councillor Woodsworth. So how tall is the Shangri-La? So we know that, but then we're proposing a 700. And how tall is the TD Tower in Toronto? And the answer was, well, you've got to warn me about questions like that, and that's not an answer. And we have a representative of the people asking these questions, and the TD Tower is actually this black tower that you see. Was once actually the highest building in all of Canada, and at the moment it's still very, very well known, because it was designed by Mies van der Rohe, and you might know some of his other works like Villa Tungenhout and Brno, or the famous Barcelona Pavilion. If you've been to Barcelona, it's a great place to visit. And the other thing that anyone can do with Google, and Google's great on many fronts, because you can zoom in to the street view and look around, all around. So if you want to visit downtown Tokyo, if you want to visit downtown Paris or Copenhagen or Florence. A lot of these major cities are already on Street View, so you can look around and compare presidents in different scales to Vancouver or Victoria or Canadian cities. It's a great tool.
Excuse me, do you know how tall the TD Tower is in Toronto?
I'm not going to tell you that, you have to look it up. I'll give you a hint. It's very similar to the heights that we're talking about.
Thank you.
But if you just Google tallest buildings in Toronto and look at the list, it'll take you about 5-10 seconds.
Excuse me? Can I just clarify that that's not even nearly the tallest building?
No, so we're going to take questions and answers later, okay? Sorry.
Okay.
So what I noticed with buildings in Canada is if you have an environment like this in Toronto or in Montreal, you actually force a lot of people to go underground with the pass system because the wind's so harsh and the winter's so harsh. So people are actually living in this underground city and hive. There are a couple of exceptions here above ground like DCE Place, but there is this huge pass system. So I think this goes to show that the reality of the harsh winter climate and the winds and that darkness is driving people underground. It's not a very livable place in the downtown. And in Paris, I was in Paris in November, I took these shots, and there's this tower called Montparnasse, which was actually very close to my hotel in Montparnasse, Tour Montparnasse. It was built in 1972, and there was, Parisians actually saw that tower, and some designers, they liked it at that time. But by 1974, all skyscrapers were banned from the downtown, and I will note, of course, that there is La Défense, which is, you really can't see from the downtown, so they let, maybe a Metrotown or some other place out there to take their towers, but the central business district does not have skyscrapers and will not have skyscrapers, and I think Paris, by all precedent in terms of eco-density, number of people, 9 million or so in the area, it is a great model to look at, and it's a wonderful place. So, if you want to get away for a weekend and just, a little bit expensive, but if you're in Europe and you want to stop for a few days, check out Paris. The other city I'm going to talk about is City of Ottawa. I'll show you a couple of images on what was proposed in the 90s. But a new protection has been put in place for downtown Ottawa. There was a previous protection in place that just basically got updated with more complete computer graphics and calculations, and it's a fine-tuning of the existing policy. But these photos are from 2008, and you can actually see the dominance of Parliament Hill, the precinct, the towers, Peace Tower. But there's still a very tall downtown behind that. It's not of the scale of Vancouver's downtown, but Ottawa is a big city. It's actually bigger than Vancouver if you look at the city proper. It has a population of over 800,000. And there was a very tall tower proposed, and that's actually this guy here by Robert Campeau. And that's what really brought these discussions to the forefront in Ottawa. This is a simulation I worked on. And we looked at what would happen if all other developable sites got another 15 stories. And, well, that's how the skyline would look like. But back in the 90s and later in the 2000s, this discussion actually went on in Ottawa. And they wanted to protect their heritage, their symbols of Parliament, and the whole bluffs of the precinct. Now I'm going to look at the staff presentation. I'm taking a couple of slides here from the staff presentation. I think we're going to illustrate a fundamental shift of differences in values and opinions here. So not everyone might share my values here. But if we look at this view in 1988, and this was Charleston seawall, I was actually there, took a few photos to confirm. That you can see the lions, you can see this massive mountain, and so on. And this is how it read in 1988, and I think I actually quite like it. And if we forward to today, this is from the staff report, the point was that the view corridor was protected. Now, the other way to phrase this question, okay, I've actually tried to line them up, and there's a little bit of difference, but these are the two photos on top of each other, so you can kind of see where the mountain was and where the buildings came in. And actually, this building here to the left is finished now, so it's all the way filled up. So if you look at how much sky there was here and mountain, in terms of your own overall visual experience and your experience of the skyline.